if you're looking at the packet, it's the page that says profit and loss budget versus actual. That's where we are. Yeah.
How's that? Is that better?
Yeah, that's good.
All right, now you can see everything. All right. I'm way off now. All right, so we have insurance. Again, as James mentioned, our insurance premium reduced for the year from, we're going to end up paying $289,000 this year for our insurance. That is net of, we got a $39,000 refund from the policy. So we paid $289,000 for 2024 premiums, and then we've reduced that to $156,000. So we saved $132,000 on the insurance policies going forward. Now the difference between the 320 and the 286 were that we paid a $40-some thousand deposit on this year. The deposit premium that's due was due in September, and then we've paid $12,000 per month after that. So we've front-ended the policy that will make the insurance premiums a little lighter in 2025. And I do want to mention too that I was looking at the coverage sheets today, reviewing them again, and some other highlights of that is that our deductibles actually, they're $25,000 for the general deductible on both policies, but the water damage actually went down from $50,000 down to $10,000. So that was a really nice reduction in the deductible on that. And then wind and hail went down from it's 10,000 down from, no, I can't read my stupid notes, sorry. So water damage went from 50 down to 10, and wind hail went from 100,000 down to 50. So we had some pretty substantial decreases in the deductibles. So that was really nice too. And then again, we got a $39,000 refund. The next slide shows that we had grounds and landscaping of $92,000. That included $82,000 in the grounds, and that was overstated. We paid in 2025, we paid an additional $23,725 that we really should have paid the year before. So that will be non-recurring. We won't. I double-checked the financials, and that was paid through December this year, so we're good there. Total recreation, which includes the pool and permits and stuff, was $10,331. Repairs and maintenance is kind of low this year, obviously, since we spent $350,000 on software repair, and you know, Doug Weaver did do a lot of additional repairs other than the soffit. He replaced a lot of siding in places that was really bad. Did a lot of our really large repairs, and then we had the new gutters put in. So the actual repairs and maintenance was pretty low this year. Total utilities came in at $149,000, and just for reference, I tracked the number of units in each of these lines to see what our spend was per unit, and we ended up, you can see the highest building is RS&T. Their monthly water spend is $831, and then the lowest is buildings W, X, Y, and Z at $456. This is all, again, pretty equal, except probably the clubhouse, because again, we're including the clubhouse there with a couple of other buildings, but it's really pretty equivalent, which our average water per month per unit was $628. I'm sorry, annual. It was $628, and I compared that to prior years. I did go back to 2019, but we were spending $896 per unit back in 2016. 2020 we were at $566. 21 we were at $645. 22 we were at $763. In 2023 we were at $750. So we had a really good year, fortunately, for our water consumption. And making sure that you get with David Floyd, if you see any kind of leaks and things like that, as soon as possible was really helping that situation. So our total expenses this year were $647,000, which means we had $33,000 that could be, well, per this financial statements, $33,000 that could be moved to reserves, but the loan principals are actually booked as a reduction to loan on the balance sheet. So if you take those into account, we actually had $695,000 worth of cash expenditures for the year. And I kind of broke that out again too by unit. So for 2024, we paid out in costs almost $392 per month per unit. The total revenue we collected, including that special assessment, was just under $384 per unit per month. So we had a shortfall of $8.21 per unit per month that we took out of reserves, which again is why we went up to the $350 per month. Now, if you take out, I did do the calculation too, so the overcharges, so the non-recurring charges that happened in the income statement were the insurance and the groundskeeping. Those totaled up $187,000. So of that $391, $187,000 is not going to continue going forward, hopefully. That comes out to $106 per month per home. So if you take that back out, our actual spend was $200 on ongoing recurring expenses is $286 per month per home. And that gives us about $113,000 that should have went to reserves. Our budget for this year is that it's going to be about $85,000. Again, offsetting some other expenses.
Good question. The total revenue collected per unit per month for 2024, and correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. I thought we were all paying $425.
We paid
We paid $300, and there was a $125 assessment. Am I correct?
But not for the whole year, just for 6 months. Right.
Okay.
It was a $1,000 assessment for the year. So our 2025 budget, we're budgeting $636,000 of income, and that's with some interest income and a $350 HOA fee. Our expenses, we expect about $185,000 in insurance. Yes, renewals were $150-some thousand. We expect that to go up a little bit in September when it comes up for renewal. And that also is net of, doesn't include the finance charges. So we do incur some finance charges so that we can spread those payments over most of the year and not have to pay out $150,000 at one time. Paying the employee management fees of $28,000 and those loan payments, that includes interest and principal. They're at $69,000 a year. So total administrative are $286,000 for the year. Total grounds will be about a little over $70,000 a year. Total recreation, the pool, and dog supplies and stuff like that, $9,200. Repairs and maintenance has gone up slightly this year, up to $39,000. Now that does not include. I'll go over it. Utilities we budgeted in at $145,000. So our total expenses we expect to be about $551,000, which gives us about $85,000. So we're starting the year off with $200,000 of cash that's kind of we can utilize for community expenses outside of this, and then another $85,000. So a little under $300,000 that we can potentially use for almost $300,000 for major repairs. Now, one of the things that we received a copy of it about a year ago. As you know, this year has been pretty stressful with trying to deal with the insurance, but we did our reserve study, and for 2000, there's a lot of expenses that are coming up in that reserve study that we're going to have to incur as a community at some point in time. Now, the reserve study They come in and they tell you what needs to be done, and they give you an approximate time of when it needs to be done. But it's for us to determine what and where and how much we can afford to do at any particular time. So just to give you an example of what it had on that reserve study, is that we had, for 2025, they say we're going to spend $439,000. Now I said we had $300,000. They say we're going to spend $439,000, but $118,000, almost $119,000 of that was on limited common elements. So that's really, we exclude that out of, we should be excluding that. That's your homeowner's responsibilities for that part of it. $320,000 is for common element repairs, such as exterior painting, clubhouse maintenance, which paint, carpeting, possibly an HVAC system, and then repairs to the pool of about $22,000. Deck repair, painting the fence, furniture replacement, pump, building. Again, it's for the board and the homeowners this next year to figure out what of these we want to do, how we want to do them. It's not necessarily that we have to do these at this time. It's that these are things that we need to make sure we budget for going forward. 2026, some of the major items that were on there were to fix the sidewalks and curbs and the tennis courts. So 2026 was kind of a smaller year, but be prepared for 2027. 2027 and 28, the reserve study includes $785,000. But let me put a big but. That includes $550,000 of asphalt. So it's repaving the whole community. Can we afford that in 3 years? That might not happen. I mean, so again, can we get by with patching or something like that? That's for us to talk about. That includes mill and overlayment of $488,000, patch and crack repair, and then again another major project with exterior siding, soffit, and fascia. I really hope that in 3 years we don't have to do that whole big project all over again. No, 4 years. I hope it lasts longer than that.
Could I ask, I just don't understand fully the terms. If we're gonna do asphalt paving, does mill and overlay go with that, or is that instead of?
Mill and overlay is repaving.
Yeah, it's repaving.
So what, two separate?
Yeah, they have to go in and repair the cracks and the big divots first, and then they go over it all with asphalt.
You know how you see it on the roads, you end up
Yes.
bumping along for a while before they
do the paving.
do the
So it would
It's,
be.
it's just the subline showing how everything adds
Oh, I
up to
see,
the
I see.
546.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. It's not.
And again, is it gonna cost us 400 and something? I don't know. We need to get bids, we need to find out, we need to get people to tell us. We need to do research. These are I'm just added this on here, sorry. These are my initiatives, considering that we have all these expenses coming up. What I would like to do, and hopefully put together this year, is a long-term budget for the community, so that everybody I'm sure we're all aware that our fees were gonna go up to $350. But to get these projects done, everybody's aware, to get these projects done, our fees will need to go up over time. So what we need to do is figure out and let you know what that's going to look like, right? How much are they going to escalate in the next several years so that we can get these projects done? But we need to the board needs to do that homework. We need to do our due diligence. We need to figure out what those increases are going to be. I certainly don't want to come back and tell you, you have a $100 fee increase at some point in time. I think it's got to be reasonable. You guys need to know what's going to be coming up. We shouldn't be hitting you with a surprise. And then the other is we've talked about since I've been on here is, again, trying to figure out how we create some committees, how we get more community homeowners involved. A couple of failed attempts at that this last few years. I think that what the board needs to do is come up with the committee responsibilities first, and then try to recruit, because people need to know what the expectations are. So those are some of the things that I personally would like to see done. And the other thing I have it on here, but I didn't mention it, is that you know, the loan will also be paid up. We have these big expenses coming up, but we are paying that loan off in 2030 in 5 years. So that's an extra $69,000 in cash that we'll be getting in. And we don't have to take it out of your pockets, right? So, if anybody's got any questions? Yeah.
I've got something. Let's say 2027, we have to spend the $500,000 for paving. And let's say the dues go to $500 a month. But the next year, we're not going to have that outlay.
Right.
So why not do an assessment and leave the fees where they are?
Well, we talked about, and I'm sure David will be able to guide us through the board through that going forward, but there are some issues with giving recurring assessments to our homeowners. So we definitely need to make sure, which is again why I think the board needs to come up with a good long-term plan. Like if we can't do that in 3 years, which might be pretty impossible, then maybe it's in 5 years. Maybe we can figure out how we can save for it up to that point in time. But again, I don't have the answers for that. I think that's what we need to come up with this year for you guys. That we need to do our due diligence to have those answers. I mean, we need to, I was calculating the other day, in 12 years, we have to start putting roofs back on that buildings again, right? That's, for me to, well, when
25 years.
No, the roofs have got 25 to 30-year
Oh, good.
warranties.
But anyways, even, I did, I think, 15 years. But just for example, this is an example. 15 years, some of them already have 6 years on them. So say in 15 years we have to start again. If we start just saving for those roofs, it's like $50,000 a year we have to put in our savings account to do a $2 million project in 15 years. I mean, we have to have some really good long-term goals.
And I do want to make a note here that when they say that we need fascias and, you know, those things done, the reserve study was almost double the amount. So you have to take these numbers, the reserve study, like kind of worst case scenario.
Yeah.
So, you know,
It's examples.
they're, you know, examples, yeah.
Hi, who does the reserve study for you? Is it a company or is it, okay, because we've lived in other complexes that had similar board arrangements, and one of the things that we did, and just food for thought, is we looked at the 5-year and we moved projects around. So
Yeah.
like we did the paving across 3 years, and it was
Yeah.
like this set of group, you know, units in 1 year, that set of group in every time. We all paid, so it wasn't like if you lived there you paid, but at least it defrayed the cost or deferred the costs. And, you know, so looking at all those numbers, and the reason I asked about who does it is you should find out what their formula is, because they may be projecting a percentage of material increase, labor increase, so obviously we.
Yeah, that's
just
why I'm
have to be-
saying, don't take these numbers, because we don't know.
Right,
We
but,
need to do our own homework.
but those could be like your worst case scenario numbers, right? So you don't wanna, you know, when I first heard that, I was like, well, wait a minute, because there's something behind those numbers that they're recommending, and so it's just a food for thought. Is
Well, and we got a quote to paint the whole community, and it's over $300,000. Obviously, we couldn't do both, but what, you know, my thoughts are, is breaking the community. You know, if you've got to paint, I don't know, what do you have to, they say we have to paint every 3 years, which I think is, if you get paint that only lasts you 3 years, you need to get a different painter. But, you know, let's say it lasts 7 years, right? We need to break the community up, and we need to do this section, and this section, and this section. You know, we need to roll it. We need to figure out how we
There needs to be a plan for that.
plan for that.
There was a plan for that. We didn't ever all get painted this thing.
Right, so we need to, the board needs to figure those things out. So, but I'm just preparing you with what they have, because we haven't had the opportunity to quote those
Wendell?
things yet.
Has anybody researched any public grants for communities like ours, or state grants?
Yeah, I've never heard of an Association obtaining that, but if anyone has information on that, I've got a lot of places that would love to sign up.
There are such thing as HOA grants. I've looked at it before. I've never written a grant, but somebody that's written grants, they are out there. I would say
Probably a no-no zone for David, but I do remember about a year and a half ago, someone else brought up that same question. I don't know if it was your, okay. So when it was CMA, sorry, it was a no-no zone, I know, but when it was CMA, now I don't know how much to trust CMA at this point, but in all seriousness, they had mentioned that it's based off of the books and how healthy you are as a community, how much debt you have, debt to income ratio. So they view it as like a business for these grants. And if you're like considered like poverty, then there are options to kind of help out. It's very minimal, but it's still free money. You don't have to pay it back. And they told us at that time that you know, our RP4 didn't meet the requirements to get such funding. Now, I don't know if that's just one avenue versus a lot. I'm not sure, but I'll say out loud, I'll lean heavily on the management company to find options like that too, outside of just any one of our research as well.
And Colette, do you have any more comments on the treasurer's report? When you're finished, I have a handful of items to touch on.
Hopefully I covered everything.
Yeah, I thought it was great. Thank you.
I have one small little question. Regarding our HOA payment, is there going to be a time that we get a statement for that, or is that just, we don't have the booklet no more? And I really like having that. Is there a reason we quit having a booklet that gives our amounts that we pay each month?
Cost. Those little payment coupon books are about $5 a piece. So if the HOA doesn't send them, everyone can save $5 a person. But if anyone really wants them, you can send us an email or call us. We can make you a little book. We just cut them out, staple, and mail it to you, and then you have that. Because we do know some people like that. The majority of your homeowners pay via auto draft through our company. A good amount also pay online, or then there's still several pay via check. So however y'all want to do it, it's totally fine. But if you'd like that, just contact our office and we'll get you one.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so to touch on a few things kind of financial and just regarding the HOA in general. Insurance is the largest variable that we have no idea how that may change in the years to come. And it varies by section. It is extremely difficult to compare sections of River Plantation to each other. And mainly, there's really two, maybe three primary differences. The first is in sections 1 through 4, the plumbing setups are entirely different. In sections 5 through 11, first, the HOA does not include water in the HOA fees. Sections 5 through 11 are all individually metered. So essentially, when they're for them having a $250 HOA fee is like you having a $300 HOA fee, because essentially they're saving $50 a month by now the owner's net cost is still the same. But as far as an HOA standpoint, you should expect your fees to always be $50 plus higher than sections 5 through 11 because they don't have water included in their HOA fee. On that same note, they don't have plumbing repairs included in their HOA fees. That sections 5 through 11, they don't have to worry about water main breaks and water leaks and that sort of thing because it's all Hartman Valley owns all of their lines. You do. If there's a water leak, if there's a geyser in front of a building, that's HOA liquid money coming out of that geyser. Whereas in sections 5 through 11, it's not. And then also sections 5 through 11 are notably newer. Each section, as you get to 11, that's the newest, and the second newest, and so on. So that is it. Kind of puts sections 1 through 4 on a whole different ballgame. So like section 4 can compare to section 2, and section 3 and 1 a little bit. Section 2 and section 4 are only 2 units apart as far as difference. You're 148 units, section 2 is 146. The second biggest what sets the HOA's part is insurance premiums. So take River Plantation 4, that is almost identical to Section 2 in size and setup. River Plantation 4 was paying about $300,000 a year for insurance. Right now, River Plantation 2 pays about 70 grand a year. And even now, we're thrilled about having this new policy that's roughly $160,000 a year, and we're thrilled. But it's still about double what Section 2 is paying. And the reason for that, it's not because we didn't shop or go to the right people, it's about loss history. So when you use that policy, it's going to exponentially increase the rates. So it was used for wind damage, there were some other claims on that policy, and when you utilize that policy and your premiums skyrocket, it's not for 1 year, it's not for 2, it's usually for 5. 5-year loss history is what the vast majority of insurance carriers look at. There are some insurance carriers that only look at 3-year loss history. Those are the ones that we will have look at your policy annually to try to say, hey, are you willing to take this on? And in the last 2 or 3 years, the insurance market has gotten so much more risk adverse. There are a lot of carriers that used to say, we'll insure a 1970s property, no problem, as long as the loss history is not awful. Now, a lot of the carriers that used to be willing to take on new business like River Plantation 4, they're not willing to touch it. So with that being said, we don't know if that policy will go up next year. We kind of have to plan as though, we're going to have a steady increase in insurance premium every year. But there's a realistic chance that in the next 3 to 5 years, if we don't have claims or don't have major claims, that we can get that policy down. And we might be paying the same rate we're paying now in 5 to 7 years. There's also a chance that we're paying $300,000 a year in 5 to 7 years. So the biggest thing we can do to help that is limit losses. So for that, clean dryer vents, clean bathroom fan vents. Some of them, if you're not clean, they can catch on fire. I saw 2 of them catch on fire last year, not at River Plantation, but at similar type communities. And try having higher deductibles, like having this $25,000 deductible, actually helps the HOA limit the amount of claims, because in essence, owners are now responsible for the first $25,000 in damage. And there's times where you say having a high deductible is not ideal, yes, but at the same time, it limits the amount of claims on that policy, which helps keep everyone's premiums down. And there are HOAs in Tennessee. There are states where the insurance works completely differently. But the standard for River Plantation and most condos in Tennessee is that the HOA not just covers the exterior, but the HOA is insuring the exterior and the interior back to original specifications. So if your condo was to burn down, the HOA's insurance carrier is going to pay to not just rebuild the exterior walls, but they're going to pay to rebuild the condo like it was in the 1970s. Now, we're not going to choose bad paint colors. We're not going to use shag carpeting. But you're going to have, if the HOA, well, maybe, it depends. But that policy is supposed to build it equivalent to how it was built when originally. And now your individual policies cover essentially the difference. You cover what's called your improvements, your betterments, what's been upgraded since that time. Your policies, your individual insurance policies also cover your contents, and they should cover loss assessments up to the HOA's deductible. So for instance, if you leave a pizza box on the stove top and it catches on fire and you have a fire in your home, the HOA is going to try to recoup that deductible from you via a loss assessment. And if you have the proper coverage, then you go to your insurance carrier and say the HOA is assessing me $25,000 for this loss. They say, okay, we'll cover it, no problem. All you have to pay out of pocket is your personal deductible. So if you have any questions on insurance, call your agent and say, hey, what's that loss assessment coverage that David Floyd said? And the amount to have that is $25,000 of loss assessment coverage. Something else to keep in mind from a financial position is the loan. So all HOAs are in different positions. A lot of the River Plantation higher numbered sections that we've managed for decades plus, our company manages all river plantation, excluding sections 6, 7, and 8. A lot of those ones we've managed for decades plus, they have close to $1 million. I think one or two has over $1 million in the bank. They're in really solid positions. And some of that is just situational. Some of it's very, very smart financial planning and setting aside money for major expenses many years in advance and having proper planning. Essentially the condo planning, and this isn't just a Tennessee thing, this is really across the nation. And what really changed the game is when that condo building collapsed in Sunnyside, Florida. It was a high rise, and they found when that building collapsed and killed a bunch of people that the HOA board was aware of the situation, and essentially they just said, hey, we don't have the money, we're not going to do anything. The building collapsed, people died, not good. So Florida implemented a mandatory reserve funding, reserve study requirement, requiring all HOAs to have reserve studies performed every so often. And a lot of other states, and now including Tennessee, have followed suit. So Tennessee now requires all condominium associations to have these reserve studies performed every 5 years, or no less frequently than every 5 years. And the main reason for that is to try to keep communities from getting in a state of disrepair, because people don't always know. And it's also a transparency thing. So if you look at, and this is on your HOA website, RP4HOA.com, you can go look at your reserve study. And that reserve study, just to give you a couple of numbers, their recommended reserve funding for River Plantation 4 in 2025 is roughly $312,000. Your actual reserve funding is about $65,000. Or that's for 2024. Is 65,000. So you have a big difference. To actually meet the recommended reserve funding would require an HOA fee increase, instead of $50 increase, $184 increase. So you have a $484 HOA fee, and that would also increase incrementally every year going forward. And that's to really get on the path that they're recommending of very aggressive financial responsibility. Now, the reserve studies are usually very aggressive, right? They might say this painting project is going to be $300,000. We might have